Hi there. We're just trying to sort out some technical things here with our other researcher, but we have some visitors coming up, so that's kind of nice while we're working this stuff out. I could get started here. Welcome and thanks everyone for joining the Arrow Lakes Caribou Society live stream event to help us celebrate World Caribou Day. My name is Frances Swan. Turn it around for a second here. Yeah, my name is Frances Swan. I'm a project manager with the Arrow Lakes Caribou Society, and we're here with Olivier. Olivier will be talking a little bit later about some of the research that he's doing. He'll be joined by another researcher. So while we get that stuff worked out, I'll just do a little introduction here. We're in the observation blind at the Caribou Pen, as you can see. So this is the view from the blind. We get a view of the feeding area, the scale. We have one of our girls down there near the scale. Yep, she might just jump on and weigh herself. That would be fantastic. But yeah, it's a bit cool and wet, so we weren't sure if we would have any caribou showing up today. They might be making their way up here more often, so that would be great. Yeah, so as I mentioned, we will be joined by the two students working on some research, caribou research, and but first, a little bit about the Arrow Lakes Caribou Society. The ALCS is a nonprofit organization that's based in the Cusp, BC. And the society was formed in 2019 to provide a local voice in recovery efforts for the Central Selkirk caribou herd, which is the local herd around here in the Central Selkirks. Our mission is to facilitate information sharing and involvement during development and implementation of caribou recovery activities, and to advocate for ongoing, transparent, and meaningful community and stakeholder communication, consultation with government, and involvement in caribou recovery. Our organization, the ALCS, is a collaboration of many stakeholders and supporters, including recreation groups, commercial rec operators, guide outfitters, trappers, local government, forestry and tourism operators, and backcountry users, and other people interested in conservation of caribou. And the society is governed by a nonprofit board of directors with representation from many of these stakeholder groups. We also work closely with the BC Caribou Recovery Program and provincial biologists and other organizations working on caribou recovery in the province. And also, yeah, we actually do have some very good supportive partners from the US, from south of the border, the Colville Confederated Tribes, the Snipes Confederacy, and also Kalispel Tribe. So here at the maternity pen here, we are now in our fifth year of operations. Generally, the goals for the maternity pen are to alleviate environmental pressures on pregnant caribou and calves and improve the overall health and survival of the herd. In March 2026, we captured 11 animals. Oh, sorry.
I think that works.
Hi, yay, we're here. Good. Just give you a little bit of an introduction of the Caribou Society and the Maternity Pen project, and then we'll jump into your research. You and Olivier can jump into your projects. Anyway, yes, so we did capture 11 animals. We had a few animals that walked down to the pen, a couple bulls or 2 cows and some bulls. We released the bulls. We now have 9 cows and 2 10-month-old calves in the pen, and one of the 2-year-old bulls is still here as well. The caribou will stay in the pen here. They're cared for by shepherds in the pen through the calving period, and generally about mid-May we'll release the caribou once the youngest calf is around 4 weeks old. And a lot of factors like weather and primarily weather will determine when the calves or the animals are released. So far this year, 2 calves have been born in the pen, and we're expecting 2 or 3 more in the next few weeks. So now I can turn it over to Kim and Olivier. They can introduce themselves, and they'll be talking about their respective projects. So let's flip it around.
Hi everyone, my name is Olivier Jumeau. I'm a recent master's graduate from Thompson Rivers University in Kamloops, and for my master's work I spent a lot of time in Olgatro territory, about three hours west of Williams Lake, near Anaheim Lake and Nimpo Lake, and I was working really closely with the Olgatro First Nation to look at the impacts of wildfire on caribou habitat and food availability. And as that project came to a close, I started developing a really strong interest in calving. During fieldwork, we saw a lot of calves from the Itcha-Ilgachus herd, and that was really interesting for me to kind of see just how important it is that these calves survive that first year, how important calf recruitment is to the long-term survival of the population. And so from there, I started getting interested in maternity pens as a tool for boosting caribou populations, and naturally I found my way to the Arrow Lakes Caribou Society and the great work they've been doing here for the past few years. So I've been here for a few days now, and I'll talk more about my project later, but I'm going to be looking a little bit on caribou maternal characteristics. So within a herd, is it possible to distinguish good mothers versus weaker mothers, and how important is that for a population? But like I said, I'll talk more about that later. I'm going to pass yours on to Kim, who's joined us on the live stream now.
Hey, I'm hoping that you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you well, and you're on our screen. Hopefully you're on everybody else's screen as well.
Yeah, I can't see you, but I can see myself. So, hi, I'm Kim, and I'm a master's student at the University of British Columbia in the Okanagan campus, and I research caribou gut microbiomes as like a non-invasive alternative to kind of keeping track of caribou health, especially for a non-endangered species or for an endangered species.
Awesome. Okay, so I think the layout for the live stream is going to go as follows. Kim is going to start us off by talking about her research, and I'm going to ask Kim some questions about her work, and then we're going to swap over, and then we're going to do the same thing. Kim is going to talk to me about my work, and then we'll finish probably with some maybe some interesting facts and a bit of a conclusion about the pen, and possibly some next steps for the rest of the summer as well.
That sounds great. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay, so Kim, I'm just going to pull up our questions now.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and flip it around because we have some nice views.
Yeah, show the caribou.
Yeah, there we go. So.
Perfect. Okay, Kim, could you give us, I guess, a rundown of gut microbiome as a tool for wildlife conservation, and then how can it help us support the long-term recovery of the central Selkirk herd?
Yeah, so for the first part, the gut microbiome, like generally speaking, is all of the tiny little organisms that naturally inhabit digestive systems, and that includes like the bacteria, viruses. They help with digestion. They play a role in like hormone like creation within the body. So it's like pretty huge role that is only just starting to become researched, especially when it comes to wild animals. And our hope is that we can use it to monitor the health of animals without having to like wait until they start showing symptoms.
Nice. And what is it specifically about the data that you've got at the moment and some of the early or preliminary results that you've got so far that kind of stand out to you? Or is there anything interesting that you've come across so far?
One of the more interesting things that have come up is, Dr. Amelie Mathieu, the wildlife biologist that works with the pen, she collected swab samples from the calves last year. So she just swabbed their noses and mouths. And I wasn't expecting a lot of information to come out of those, but there is surprisingly a lot. I can't speak yet onto the specifics, but that was so far pretty shocking. That is it's, although invasive, is like actually, it gives out quite a lot of information.
Perfect. And you mentioned there a little bit about the samples that you collect and kind of the analysis that you're starting to run with it. Could you give us an example of a typical fieldwork day for you on your project? And when you are in the cusp and you come to the pen, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because a lot of it is just waiting. So I usually arrive at the pen right around when the other shepherds do, so between 7 and 7:30 in the morning. And then I just get ready and I wait until the caribou show up. And then as soon as they do, it's like all hands on deck. Let's start watching them, see if they poop. And then when they do, it's like, okay, mark the time, get all the information that I need before I go, and then I go into the pen and collect it, and then collect more information. So it's like a flurry as soon as something happens. And until then, it's like just waiting, just hanging out.
Nice. So patience is really key for your type of work.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Or having something else to do at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that leads us nicely on to the next question that we've got here is, can you recall anything funny or unexpected or memorable that's happened to you while you've been at the maternity pen here in the cusp?
So many things, because like each have their own personalities. But there was one instance last month when I was out there where I had gone into the pen to go collect a sample, and I was trying my absolute best to like be very, very slow around them so as to not stress them out. But the two young ones, 22 and 24, were really interested in what I was doing, and they got closer. And I was internally, I was freaking out. I was like, I don't want to be anywhere near a caribou, especially when the mom is just standing right there. But one of the moms was 10, and she she kind of like took a step at me and stomped her foot a little bit, and I was like, I'm out. I'm just gonna leave. And as soon as I was out, I was like, that was kind of funny, but a little stressful.
Nice.
Because like the mom was getting mad at me, even though it was her cat that was coming at me.
Yeah, 22 and 24 are quite the pair. They always seem to be up to something.
Yeah, they're little like shenanigans. So.
Yeah. Awesome. I guess moving on, Kim, a little bit to the science behind the work that you do. If you were to explain shotgun metagenomic sequencing to a 10-year-old, how would you go about that?
Yeah. So I collect fecal samples, and from those, I take out all, like using a special kit, I take out all of the DNA that comes out of that sample. And from there, the best way to describe it is essentially just essentially shoot it like a shotgun style, like birdshot, buckshot, that kind of thing, and you just blast that DNA into smaller fragments, and then you can sequence it. So the whole point is that you break it all apart so it's manageable, but you sequence everything.
Nice. That's really exciting. And you mentioned before, obviously, wildlife research, it's really hard to get data that gives us important insights without intruding on these animals. And obviously the pen itself provides a great opportunity for some of these, newer approaches. And as you mentioned, what a great way to get a better idea of what these animals, what their biology is like without disturbing them, without interfering with their daily routine. I guess, I know we spoke a little bit about this yesterday, Kim, but there's a possibility that by sequencing this gut biome, it's possible to kind of tell to look at this code and be able to distinguish between different animals and to see which ones are related? Is that something that you might look at more with your work?
I'm not sure if I specifically will be doing that. It is possible though, because part of what is being sequenced is caribou DNA. How much of it, I don't know, because we do try to get what's inside the poop, so not necessarily what's coming into physical contact. But it would be really cool. I know Sam, one of the shepherds, is looking into that, as well as another lab down in University of Calgary. So I think they would be able to speak more onto that.
Awesome. Perfect. The next question, the next set of questions we have lined up relate a little bit more to the conservation impacts of the project that you're doing, Kim. And I guess the first one would be, how could microbiome research change the way we monitor endangered wildlife in the future? Obviously, we know caribou are declining across many parts of the province. They're a really important species, culturally, economically. What can your research, or what does it enable us to do that we couldn't necessarily do 10 years ago?
Yeah. So one of the major issues when it comes to research side, when it comes to an endangered animal, is that they're, one, very difficult to locate because their population density is so low. And then second, you can't come into physical contact with an endangered species. So by doing microbiome research, we're able to collect samples without ever coming to physical contact. Like, I don't need animal handling permits in any way. So it increases the accessibility to being able to study an animal that you can't physically touch. And then to some extent as well, you don't even need to come into like visual contact with them either, depending on the length of time that it's been since they pooped. This also increases accessibility in the case that you don't need to be a scientist to do this. This could be something in the future that citizen scientists, indigenous collaborators, hunters can also partake in.
I think you make a really exciting point there, Kim. Obviously, we know that the whole project in Nakusp was built on countless volunteer hours from the community in Nakusp. Many of these people, aren't caribou biologists and come from many different backgrounds. And I'm just curious, could you talk to us a little bit more about the importance of that citizen science? And we're entering that age now where there is so much work that needs to be done. And is it possible that we can improve the accessibility for non-scientists to get involved with research about animals that they care about?
I think that's definitely one of the most important things that we as scientists need to partake in, is this communication in citizen science, because it's ultimately the people who support conservation efforts. Scientists and research can only go so far, but the public can go way further.
No, that's well said, Kim. That's really, really a great message, and especially again, we look at coming back to the example of the pen here in Nakusp, again, just the amount of time it took to get this project up and running, the amount of buy-in from the community as well. It's quite rare that you see that, and it's really an example, or a great example, of how much can be done with that community buy-in. And yeah, really exciting that your project really leans into that. And like you said, the collection of these samples really provide really exciting opportunities to learn more about caribou. I think we were making the comment yesterday that the more we study caribou, the less you seem to know them. And anyone who says they know what a caribou is going to do next, probably aren't telling the truth, because in reality, no one really knows. But like you said, really, really good way to increase the community involvement with the project even more. And I guess I'll just change pace here a little bit, Kim. What are some of the challenges of the work that you're doing? Obviously, we've talked about how important it can be. What are some of the struggles that you inevitably come across with this type of work?
Oh, I think one of the primary challenge. It's interesting because a lot of those challenges I've already overcome for over a year now. But probably the main one is just access. That and being able to communicate what I do to someone who is also who's not in the same field. but primarily, I guess it would be just access to getting samples. Like I said, caribou are not easy to find once they're out in the wild, and so having the maternity pen was a phenomenal opportunity to actually do this.
Absolutely. And I guess in a similar tone to that, Kim, what is something that has surprised you from the start of this project to now? Is there anything notable that you weren't expecting at all?
I think, oh man, something I wasn't expecting. I think probably how much fun I was going to have doing this project. It's pretty easy, like, to talk to my family and friends about this and be like, yeah, I collect poop from a wild animal, and people be grossed by that. But I'm surprised at, like, just how much it's just fun being out there in the pen and just watching the caribou all day long.
Absolutely. I have to say I agree in that. Having studied caribou for over 3 years now, it's such a phenomenal opportunity to go from 7 weeks of field work where you see 10 animals to being able to watch them and observe them up close every day. It does provide really exciting opportunities for research, like I guess what we're both doing. So yeah, really cool that you noticed that as well. I guess just while I'm kind of working through these questions, Kim, do you have any skills that you want to share that you say you've learned while you've been at the cusp at the pen, or any how has this helped you as a researcher and as a scientist?
I'll start with a fun skill that I didn't think I would need nor develop while at the pen, and that is essentially playing the game hot or cold. Last year, I had the privilege of having someone come out and help me collect samples, and so she was up in the blind, kind of guiding me, telling me like which direction to turn, how many steps to take forward, and just to find the right sample. And yeah, not expecting that. So hot or cold is the game to play, apparently. And then more on the serious one is maybe I guess processing information. Caribou are found across Canada in various landscapes, very diverse landscapes. And so being able to, like, the skill necessary to process that information and not confuse details between the two, or between all of the various subspecies, was, I guess now in hindsight, surprising how much that's needed.
Absolutely. And we've got a question here from Sky Cunningham in the chat. Francis, if you want to read it out.
Sure. Sky's question is, Kim, can you tell us a bit about your findings on how different types of browse, lichen, and feed, I guess that means pellet feed, affect the caribou microbiome?
I can't speak like specifically to results that I've found within like for these specific caribou just yet. Hopefully very soon, as the code's running currently out on the computer. But if I were to like make an educated guess, we would expect the gut microbiome to gradually shift as diet changes, especially when you come from lichen to primarily lichen to pellet feeding to adding browse to adding various other options for food. And we expect it to change because microbes play a very important role in just the digestion of our food, and this is the case for all animals. So as you switch your diet, the microbes that you need to digest that food is also going to change.
And can I just ask a question on that, Kim? I think, has there been some other research on the gut microbiome and how potentially maternity penning is affecting gut microbiome of caribou? Are you aware of any?
Yes, there was a paper that was published by Dr. Clayton Lamb last year, I believe, in 2025. Unfortunately, I can't speak to the exact results. It's been a minute since I've read that paper, but I can definitely find it and send it to you.
That would be great, thanks. So that is sort of something that researchers are looking at, and I don't know if concern is the right word, but definitely a consideration for maternity penning.
Yeah, this one was also done with Seesaw maternity pen up north, so it's pretty relevant to this one as well.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. And I think we're coming to the end of the questions for this part, Kim, but I've got one last question from my end, and I guess we can open it up to the live stream if anyone has a question on there too. But last question for me, Kim, is can microbiome research help detect problems early in caribou? I think it's definitely something that we kind of forget when we're studying wildlife, is that these animals do get sick, sometimes quite often, and that can, in the wild, can lead to major consequences, especially for caribou, like you mentioned, with such small numbers in some herds at the moment. Is it possible that your research and similar research can identify some of these problems early and help these animals in the long term?
Yeah, that's the hope with, especially with this current project, is to be able to do that, because we expect, especially like viruses and other pathogens, to start infecting the body, but at the same time they are dying naturally and being shed, and sometimes that is being shed in feces and poop samples. So our hope is that we can have a sensitive enough detection to see if that works, potentially months to years before that becomes symptomatic in the caribou.
Amazing. Yeah, that's really powerful stuff. And I know I speak on behalf of lots of people here at Arrow Lakes that, we really look forward to seeing your results. And it could be a really interesting time for the pen moving forward.
Yeah, very excited.
Awesome. I think we'll take a couple of minutes just to get set up for the next section. Maybe we'll turn to the pen. Unfortunately, it's quite wet this afternoon, so there's not too much going on.
No, we must be bedded down in the trees trying to get a nap, keep dry. Yeah, really wet up here. Anybody else have questions for Kim on her research? Sorry, I was trying to rotate the phone. It didn't work. I'm not the tech person here. No, okay. I've got a question for you, Kim.
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing about caribou?
Oh, there's so much.
Okay.
I think the main thing is just how peaceful they are. Like you're in their presence and you just feel calm, right? Like they're just existing so naturally with their habitat. It's really fun. That, and when they play, that's always super fun when they start playing.
Yeah, and those calves are so cute.
Yeah.
That's great.
We've got another question from Sky Kim, and that is, how can we continue to follow along your research and find more information about the work you're doing?
Unfortunately, right, I'm not really on social media. I am going to have to start doing that so that I can start communicating my findings a lot more. But outside of that, when it does, like, more on the academic side of things and the research side of things, once this is published, this will be open source, open access to everybody. Additionally, my master's thesis will also be open source and available, but I will have to start considering doing more live, up-to-date updates so that everyone can be more involved.
Yeah, the poster that you put together last year it must have been a presentation you did or at some sort of an event, was really, really wonderful. That was a really nice synopsis of the project and what you've been doing and objectives. So looking forward to an update to that.
Yeah, same.
Good.
I guess on a personal note, Kim, could you tell the audience and people watching what are your next steps? Obviously, you've got a big few months ahead getting your thesis to defense day, but what's lined up for you in the next year or so?
The next year, so short term, it is completing the analysis, so getting that all done here at UBCO. It's so far working more smoothly than I initially expected, so that's pretty exciting. And then moving forward from that, I have accepted a PhD position to continue specifically this caribou project. So this will be a multi-year endeavor.
Oh, that's exciting. Good.
Amazing. We've got another question in the chat here from Rio. And that is, Kim, can the gut microbiome provide information about the amount of heavy metals or salinity content in the area. For example, the lack of certain extremophiles in the caribou gut microbiome.
Ooh.
Yeah.
This is more on the microbial side of things than I usually generally research, but hypothetically, likely, especially if you expect certain microbes to appear in an environment that has heavy metals, or to be extremely sensitive to heavy metals. So therefore, like if there are heavy metals present, then those specific microbes just wouldn't be. Additionally, you can take fecal samples and do separate analysis of just heavy metals on their own.
Amazing. Thank you for that great question in the chat, and yeah, thank you for that really insightful answer as well, Kim.
I think there was a question just before that one from Sky. How many calves? How many calves? So far we have 2. Yeah, 2 calves born in the pen.
That's
2 males. Yeah, so, I mean, if people have questions later, that's fine, we can jump in, but Kim, do you want to just sort of launch some questions for Olivier about his project?
Yeah. So maybe as a quick refresher, Olivier, how would you explain your project in a few sentences?
It's a great question. I'd say within the herd at the moment, I'm looking for a way to profile the different cows to see if some have certain traits that others don't, and whether that is influenced by age, could that be body weight, or could that be previous calving experience? So within the herd, and obviously it's a small herd here in the Central Selkirk herd, is there variation among females and how they raise their calves, and some of the behaviors that they exhibit during calving and just before calving as well. So quite a behavior-focused study. And thankfully, the pen here at Arrow Lakes Society have been really generous in giving me lots of data to kind of build some of my questions from. So I have data on body weights, calving dates, the date at which these females shed their antlers as well. So all of this going back 5 years. So I'm kind of putting all that together with a little bit of telemetry data to kind of see, to kind of build, a profile of these females, and does that influence, or does that have the potential to influence the success of these calves once they're released into the wild?
Right. And how would you explain why this matters?
Yeah, it's another great question. I would say it's quite difficult, and this is speaking broadly across the province. There's lots of herds across the Rocky Mountains up into northern British Columbia. But within these herds, it's quite difficult to know how many or how old some of these animals are. So, we could be having a phenomena where you have age or older dominant herds where the females that are giving birth are, 6, 7, 8 years old for the most part. Or you could be having some herds where it's not like that, where it's much younger females that are giving birth. We actually don't really know too much about the demography of these herds in the wild. And so if, the success of a calf is determined or is linked to factors such as the age of females, the body condition of females, and also the previous calving experience of these females, could that be something that provides insights across the province of BC when we're looking at these wilder herds, while, deriving that from looking at these animals in the maternity pen here in the cusp? Is that something that we can pull apart and start to look at in more depth? And I guess quite simply, if there is a link between, these factors and the survival of these calves, is there any way us as conservationists can support that? Can we provide, better insights into which habitat needs to be protected more if we can determine the preference of these females and where they calve? Is there something in the antler shed data that we're missing that we haven't noticed before? There's lots of evidence in other herds, for example, in Alaska, obviously different species of caribou, but there's evidence that the calving date is very quickly followed or very quickly preceded by these females shedding their antlers within 2 or 3 days, which is a really, really tight margin. Having looked at the data here in the cusp, it's not quite the case. The females in this herd lose their antlers a good month or so before they give birth. But there's lots of stuff like that I think could be really, really insightful for caribou across BC and definitely within the southern mountain population.
Are there any early predictions of what you might expect to come from this project?
Absolutely. I'd say just looking at the preliminary data is that there does appear to be, as expected, a very small relationship or a very faint relationship between the weight of females coming out of winter and the weight of the calves when they give birth. There are some, obviously within that data set, there's some younger females. So you've got the 2-year-olds that come in pregnant and do give birth. They quite consistently give birth to much smaller calves. Whereas the older, more experienced animals do typically give birth to those calves within that 8 kilogram to 10 kilogram range. I think the calf that was born yesterday was just under 9 kilograms,
Yeah.
and then last week was just over 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ideally, these animals are coming in a good body condition, which isn't always the case coming out of winter, which is another reason why the pen is such an important resource for these animals in terms of providing them with food. We know that the females during the calving window, their protein requirements increase substantially compared to the winter season as well. And so that period before calving and during calving is really, really important for these females to put on or to get protein, which isn't very prevalent in their lichen-rich winter diets, and also to help them start producing milk, as simple as that. Obviously, the colostrum in that first day of life for these calves is really important. All these antibodies, all this protein is really important. So, yeah, anything that we can pull apart from that can give us really big insights into how we can protect these caribou and support these caribou in the next few years.
I'm not sure if you mentioned it today, but yesterday we were talking as well. So speaking of gaining enough protein, especially from colostrum, you mentioned suckling success. Can you explain what that means and why it matters, especially for the calf?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I'm trying to look at here at the pen is how long are these calves suckling for milk when it's visible, and who initiates that suckling and who terminates that suckling session, as it were. And the idea behind that is a fairly simple hypothesis. If a calf is suckling for longer, it means that female is producing more milk and that calf is getting more milk. And the idea behind that is that it's beneficial for the calf in terms of getting more protein, more energy, putting on more weight in a short amount of time. That will help that calf hopefully survive that first year. Obviously, we know that first year is the hardest year for these animals to make it through. They have, countless predators after them from the minute they leave the pen in July. They have, weather events. They've got rain events, snowstorms, cold winters, warm winters. All these different things are affecting their survival. And hopefully, if they can put on enough weight before they leave the pen, it might give them a better chance of survival again, making to that first year. And in particular for these females, hopefully they can return successfully after 1 year and they can join that adult population and start producing some calves themselves.
So in that same vein, is there other things that you're looking for in the calves that will make you more confident that a calf will survive long term?
Yes, so obviously weight and body mass is a really quantitative and almost proven way of looking at stuff. I'm quite keen to look more at some of the more qualitative or subjective parts of caribou behavior. It becomes a little bit more difficult to really make conclusive insights. And when I say that, I'm talking about how much is this calf devoting energy towards play behavior? How much is this calf, is this a bold and confident calf that is quite inquisitive when there's new things going on, or is this calf much more reserved and much shyer? And when you apply that to a wild environment, for example, if you have a bold calf that is perhaps too confident and too cocky, for want of a better word, is that calf going to get itself into problems in the wild where it's not really afraid of something that it should be afraid of? And then on the other hand as well, if you have a calf that is perhaps too shy or too timid, is that going to potentially be problematic in situations that occur in the wild? with predators, and also just with selecting new habitat or being able to make decisions that benefit it in the long term. So I think that these qualitative behaviors are quite important. They're quite understudied in caribou at the moment. Most of the research in this area is typically associated with livestock. There's lots of cattle studies on boldness, on confidence within young cattle. I'm trying to kind of start looking at, is that possible? Is that something that we can look at in caribou? And as I mentioned before, the pen here in Nicosia is a great example, or a great way to test some of these ideas that I have, and that's what I've been doing so far.
Yeah, we have another question from Sky here, but just while you're on that topic, what we've noticed in the pen here over the 5 years that we've been penning is that on occasion a calf, a 10-month-old calf, will come in with its mother, and it will still try to nurse and still be trying to nurse. So I wonder, are you considering that behavior as an indication of potentially or how that behavior might affect survival?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I guess I want to be really careful. I don't know whether that will impact survival, but I think it's quite interesting. And even though it is a small herd here, as Francis is referencing here, there's some cows that are already 1 year old. They've survived 1 year in the wild, but even now they're still spending a lot of time with their mother. They're still receiving attention from their mother as well in some cases, which is quite interesting. Whereas you have a number of other animals in the pen which don't really spend much time with their mother, and vice versa. And so it's quite interesting to see those differences even within a small herd. There's quite notable variation in how these animals are interacting with their mothers, 1, 2, even 3 years after they were born inside the pen.
Yeah, that is interesting, because there's probably a lot of relationships, and fortunately you'll be here for a week or a couple of sessions, so a couple of weeks. So as things come to mind, we can pass that along to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Sky has a question here. What are some observed characteristics of what makes a good caribou mother?
That's a great question. I'd say, to preface it, I think it's important not to approach, when you observe female animals in the wild, to not have that human lens on as best as we can. It's quite easy to see, oh, well, this mother is really, displaying quite what we associate as human behaviors, in terms of it's giving a lot of attention, it's nursing a lot, it's licking a lot. These things could be quite insightful, but obviously we interpret them as quite insightful because that's something that we recognize as humans. So it's quite difficult to pull that apart. I'd say some good characteristics, or some good behaviors that I would expect to see, and I've only seen a couple of days worth of interactions between the calves and the females so far, but would be just general attentiveness. For example, today, watching a calf, before, when that calf stops moving and the female keeps going, how quickly does she realize that calf is missing, and how quickly does she turn around and go back to it? Licking events, I think, are quite insightful too, or that general nursing behavior, how attentive is that female towards the calf? And then more towards the quantitative side, how frequently is this mother producing milk, and how often is she allowing the calf to suckle? If the female doesn't have enough milk, she might reject that calf from suckling, or she might terminate that suckling session early. So stuff like that. I'm trying to build a bigger picture of these females within the pen.
This really provides a very unique opportunity to study caribou behavior, especially southern mountain caribou.
Absolutely.
There's another question from Sky. Are caribou herds matriarchal?
A really interesting question. The small amount of research out there suggests no. I think a good example of matriarchy within wild ungulates would be mountain goats. So mountain goats display very, very clear matriarchal behavior, where you'll have dominant females, subdominant females, and then smaller and less experienced or weaker members of the herd, much lower down the food chain, or not the food chain, much lower down the pecking order, as it were. And basically, within mountain goat herds, you have a single female that is constantly displaying aggression towards any animals that get too close. She has, very clear boundaries of her and her calf, and she won't let any other animals get near that. She dominates the best feeding areas. She's quite dominant across the herd. That doesn't necessarily exist in caribou. And I think one thing that is, we're used to in 2026 seeing these caribou herds in, 20, 30, 40 animals. It's very likely that these herds were in the thousands, not too long ago. And just because caribou do exist in much larger herds, it's more unlikely that there is matriarchal displays among females or order within herds just because there's so many of them. But that being said, within the herd, there's definitely some animals that don't tolerate, other calves getting too close. I've definitely been speaking with some of the shepherds in the past few years that some of the older females are quite assertive when it comes to younger or weaker calves being around their own. But from what I know and from what I've read, there's no clear matriarchal system within female caribou.
In that same vein, then, have you noticed, though, if there is a form of pecking order within the Central Selkirk subpopulation?
From what I know, I'd definitely say it's probably not a matriarchal system. It's probably more older and more experienced females, seeing something and not liking it and then reacting to that, not necessarily trying to build any sort of dominance over the herd. If anything, I think from hearing the story about the calf that was born yesterday, different females respond differently to the herd being around their newborn calf, but it sounds as though the female cow 7 that gave birth yesterday was quite open to the herd, being quite close to it shortly after birth. And even this morning too, cow 7 and the young male, or the young male that was born yesterday, were with the rest of the herd, less than 48 hours after giving birth. So yeah, different females obviously seem to prefer different integration rates within the rest of the herd. For example, cow 13 that gave birth last week has been much slower to appear with their calf with the rest of the herd, and cow 13 is obviously a couple of years at least younger than cow 7. So yeah, definitely varies, but I'd say there's not really a matriarchal structure within the caribou in the pen.
Awesome. What part of your project are you most excited about?
I'd say observing some of these behaviors between cow and calf. It's such a privilege to be able to see these animals up close. Something that you very, very rarely and very few people have been able to see in the wild. Some of these close interactions, definitely within that 48-hour window. It's very typical of female caribou in the wild. They employ what's called a space out approach during calving, where they'll separate themselves from the herd, give birth away from other animals, and inevitably, they pick a hiding spot. For example, a dense area of brush or a dense area of forest where even though the caribou can't see them, let alone human researchers. And so be able to get insight into how these animals interact with their calves, 24, 48, 72 hours after birth is a real privilege and something that I've been blown away by so far, just from the limited amount I've seen this morning and yesterday.
Yeah. And now that you've actually started more of the fieldwork kind of thing, what do you expect to be the hardest part about gathering this kind of behavior data?
I'd say it's very, very close to what I've just mentioned, in that, yeah, unfortunately, you want to see what these animals are doing in that really early stage of life. But these females are, they're way too clever to let anyone see what's really going on. And so they're very secretive in that early stage. And so you've only got a few glimpses. I'd say I've been here for 2 or 3 days now, and I've probably seen the calves maybe 10 minutes in total. So a really, really short amount of time that the females are taking them out into where they're visible, which, is a good thing. It's you wouldn't want them to be calving right in front of you. You want them to display as wild a behavior as possible. But yeah, being able to watch these animals is proving quite difficult. Definitely that fine scale in terms of behavior. But I'm hoping as the calves get older and more integrated with the herd, that behavior will become easier to watch.
Yeah, that'd be exciting. If given any unlimited resource, what would be something that you would like to add into your project?
Wow.
Dream kind of thing.
I'd say one thing that's quite exciting, and there's been some work in Quebec, is that they've developed these collars that have cameras on them, and so they're able to estimate the exact time and date of birth because they can almost see the baby being born. They can also see behavior such as the females eating the placenta. We know that caribou, or some caribou do that. It could be a form of nutrients that they're taking back into their body. It's more likely that they're trying to get rid of any smell of the birthing event by eating the placenta. But I'd say cameras on collars would be pretty cool. The practicality is very expensive. The batteries last a very short amount of time, and it would be a lot of human hours in the lab watching these cameras 24/7. But I'd say that would be my one, unlimited fieldwork technique that I would bring to the pen here in Nichols.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any like question that you would want to be asked when you start talking about your project?
I think yourself, Kim, and the chat have asked some really good questions that really got me thinking. One question that I would like to be asked.
What is your favorite thing about caribou?
My favorite thing about caribou? Oof. I'd say I'm a big fan of. I'd say just their speed, to be honest, their ability to climb mountains.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough in a previous project to see these animals in Itche-Ilgachus Provincial Park, which, if anyone's been there, it's really steep. And I remember watching some of these, big males with huge antlers, walk up these, really steep gradients like it's nothing. And I think that's when I realized, in person, just how good these animals are, or how well adapted they are to their environments. And you realize that, when it does come to these, there's a reason that caribou depend on speed to get away from predators, because for the most part they are very, very quick and very fit. I think, personally, I'm quite into, outdoor endurance and mountains and stuff like that. And so seeing these animals be able to move that quick in the mountains is quite special for me.
That's great. Yeah, very impressive. Yeah, well, other questions from our viewers? Or Kim, maybe you have more questions?
I'm sure I could talk. I have a lot of questions, but I would love for the audience to also get involved on this.
It looks like we have about 5 or 6 minutes left, so time for a few questions, and then maybe a little wrap up.
Mm-hmm. We're hoping in the next 5 minutes the caribou might appear, but no. It's starting to get a little bit sunny. There's actually some snow at the top of the mountain above us, so it's been a pretty wet morning, a pretty cold morning here today.
Yeah, and for anybody who joined at the beginning here at 1, there were a few caribou out there, but they've gone into hiding, and I don't think they're coming out.
Yeah.
It's going to be a sleepy Saturday.
Yeah. Oh, Morgan, do you know how many new calves you're expecting this year? At the pen here, we don't know definitively how many calves or how many of the cows were pregnant. There were some complications with the pregnancy test results and the lab, so we haven't received the results yet. But from observations from our shepherds, it looks like 4 or 5 pregnant for sure, and we've had 2, so we're expecting 2 more, maybe 3. Yeah, there are a few that aren't pregnant, we know for sure. Well, I mean, did you guys have any more questions for each other, or any comments, or I would just like to say that it's good, listening to you talk about your projects and your research. It's really great to know like that the maternity pen is not, it's sort of helping to recover a population, but it's also really supporting the science behind caribou conservation, to have an opportunity, to provide an opportunity for you two researchers to do your work. So I think that's really exciting. That's been a bit of a learning thing for me, so that's great. And I think we're all looking forward to following the projects. Looking forward to updates, and somehow maybe we can link some of the results to our website or to the pen, and yeah, we can talk about that. But I'm sure people will be interested to find out more and see what the results are. And Kim, I know you have that poster you did last year, and we could probably put that up on our website for people who want to know more about the project.
And then I can I'll send you I can send you the PDF version. I can also create more of an updated version of it, so a little bit more up to date as we go on.
That would be great. Oh, here's a question from Sky. Happy World Caribou Day. What is the one message you would have about the importance of caribou? And oh, good question, Sky. And the theme of the World Caribou Day this year is caribou as ecosystem engineers. So that's actually, we could expand that question a little bit too, about how caribou can act as ecosystem engineers. And you got a couple minutes.
Yeah, I've got a quick one. It's more of a fun fact. And happy World Caribou Day, Sky, and everyone watching, of course. A quick one for me is that some species of caribou, or some caribou herds that eat terrestrial lichens or ground lichens, they're actually quite clumsy eaters. And so when they're eating these lichens, all these fragments fall out of their mouth as they're walking through the forest. And we actually think that that's one of the ways that these lichen colonies actually expand across the forest. Oh. And that's one of the only ways that lichens will actually disperse is through fragmentation. And caribou, obviously, we know they eat a ton of lichens, are actually probably quite important in spreading these lichens across the forest. And obviously, you've got to think these caribou are only selecting their favorite lichens to eat. And so in doing so, they're actually spreading their favorite lichens across the forest even more. So they're quite clumsy in terms of how they eat, but that actually leads to a lot of lichen growth across the forest. So really important.
Well, that's interesting. And anything from the gut microbiome angle, Kim?
Oh,
probably a lot.
Probably a lot. Probably a lot. I think it will give us a lot of really cool information, especially since caribou, southern mountain caribou specifically, eat almost primarily lichen. So it'll be interesting to see all of the various microbes that are specific to that and how important ensuring such a diverse gut microbiome is to allowing them to digest lichen, and almost always only lichen.
Yeah, okay, that's great. There is a question. What is the difference between caribou in BC and caribou in the eastern part of Canada? Do we have, we got a minute? You want to take that one?
Yeah,
Olivier?
I'll go very, very quickly. Typically, caribou in BC use mountain ranges quite extensively in terms of their habitat. Some display elevational migration between high habitat and low habitat, whereas in eastern Quebec, definitely in the northern herds, or eastern BC, definitely in the northern herds, typically the landscape is much flatter or less mountainous, and also the herd size. There's very few herds in BC that have more than 1,000 caribou, whereas there's probably less herds in Quebec and Ontario, but these herds quite easily number, 10, 50, some over 100,000 animals. So much larger herds on the East Coast compared to BC.
Oh, that's interesting. Thanks. That's great. I'm not sure, if we get cut off at the end of the hour with the live stream, but I will say right now, thanks everybody for calling in or coming into the event. And if anybody's looking for more information on the Arrow Lakes Caribou Society or this maternity pen, the Central Selkirk Caribou Maternity Pen, you can check out our website, arrowlakescaribou.com, and follow us on the Instagram or the Facebook page. And we've just started a new little series. We have a pen in the camera. Sorry, a camera in the pen here. It's not a live cam, but a live stream camera. But we are posting a day in the life of caribou with some nice footage on our YouTube channel. So check that out too. Yeah. So thank you everybody for joining us, and happy World Caribou Day. And And I don't know. Did we get cut off here, Sky? I don't know.
Doesn't seem to.
Doesn't seem to. So if anybody has more questions, go for it. No. Okay. Well, thank you,
If
Kim.
anything, you can plug the GoFundMe.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yes. We also have
Shameless plug.
Yeah. Yeah, we also have a GoFundMe page, Arrow Lakes Caribou, I think Arrow Lakes Caribou Society it is. And yeah, we do get some really great support from that page as well. So yeah, I think we can wrap it up here. And thank you, Kim and Olivier. Super interesting. That was great to catch up. Nice opportunity for you guys to talk about your projects. And yes, bye for
Hopefully we
now.
get to meet in person one day
Maybe.
as well.
Well, you will be here, right? Yeah. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if Olivia will be here though. Yeah.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. At the end of this month.
Yes.
Good. Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
See you. Thank you.